welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Thanks so much for joining us to discuss the breaking Kentucky political news of the week, including Jamie Comer's new investigation. We've got Attorney General Coleman versus Pulaski County School District over Amendment 2. We've got some good news coming out of Frankfort, maybe. That's crazy, right? And most importantly, we are serving up some harsh criticism of everyone's least favorite vice presidential nominee, JD Vance. So going to be a great show. Thanks so much for joining us. But before we get into it, I want to make sure you're ready to help turn Kentucky purple. We're glad you're here. We hope you agree with us that Kentucky deserves way better than that self-same Jamie Comer, better than Mitch McConnell, better than Rand Paul, better than Big Bank Andy Barr and the stupid GOP supermajorities in the General Assembly, which block our governor time and again from moving Kentucky forward. Despite the challenges facing our Commonwealth, we've had some highlights. We rejected Amendment 2, the classic Amendment 2, to keep abortion protections in our state constitution for all the good that did us. We reelected Andy. We can get things done in this state in November, but it's clear there's a lot of work to do to win better electoral outcomes for our Commonwealth. Unless you want your tax dollars siphoned away from public schools and sent to unaccountable religious schools or just kicked back to rich folks. Between now and this November, 83 days from now, we'll be working for better electoral outcomes in Kentucky. We hope you'll support Progress Kentucky and our campaign for a more compassionate Commonwealth, urging you all to make a contribution right now via our secure online website. Act Blue to help turn Kentucky purple. $5, $50, $500 even. It all adds up. We appreciate every dollar, and we'll put it to good work. I promise. So now let's go ahead and check in on our co-hosts. You're gonna let us know who you are, where you are, and what are you protesting today. And you there on the internet, we mean you as well. Let's hear what you're protesting today. Feel free to put it in the chat while we are sharing ours. My sign says, I prefer Lieutenant Governor Coleman to Attorney General Coleman, no relation. That's what I say. I'm picking a favorite Coleman, and I don't care who hears. I like Lieutenant Governor Coleman better. All right, let's check in with our co-hosts. Kimberly, you there?
I am here, Aaron. How are you?
Awesome.
So I'm Kimberly Cecil Jones, and I'm coming to you live from Jefferson County, which is Louisville. And my protest sign says today, hashtag so-called Republicans must go.
Go. You got a lag. I'm seeing a lag. I think you got. I don't think you have any extra bandwidth there to deal with.
No, that was me. That was me. That was MK Ultra.
MK Ultra. What are you on? Oh.
That was me. I was just like,
you're just slow. All right. Well, hey, there's the rest of our co-hosts. Awesome. Chris Priest, tell us, where are you and what are you protesting today?
Hey, I'm doing good, and here in Berea, Kentucky, first day of schools today, and I'm protesting bursitis. Deflate bursitis. That's in my hip, and it's painful, but.
I was just with you celebrating your birthday. I did not realize you had turned 75. I did not know, right?
I don't know how this happened. I didn't think I was old enough to get this. Yeah.
I don't know what's older, the fact that you have bursitis or that I've already read about it online.
Get the life alert for Chris, getting him ready. Well, what are you protesting though, Chris? Besides, I'm sorry, bursitis is that's a legitimate protest. I'm sorry, my mind was like, that's not a political conversation at all. No, I think we should always fight bad diseases.
Half of dozens of Americans die from rabies every year.
Really?
Rabies is no joke. Take it away, Colonel Willie.
Welcome back. I wonder why that says Colonel. I guess it's from the days after I had just been colonelized. I am Willie Carver. I am in Montgomery County in the beautiful town of Mount Sterling in the Gateway region that connects the Bluegrass to the Appalachians. And my protest says, let the kids read. I was just reading about some libraries in Tennessee that had to shut down because of this, how depraved the new laws are. And if we know the research on suicidality in kids, it's really, really clear. The more minoritized you are, the more likely you are to die by suicide by the time you're 25. That goes for African-American students who are more likely to die than white students. That goes for queer students who are more likely to die than non-queer students, et cetera, et cetera. And the Trevor Project does really, really good research on this. And the thing that helps them the most is to be able to project themselves into adulthood and to find sources of media that make them feel normal and like they belong and that speak to them. And those are books. And so it's intentional when we take these books away and we know what the result is. Let them read.
All right. That's a damn good one. Thanks for sharing that, Willie. And thanks for coming back. We're glad to see you again. We know you've been absolutely busy. Little shout out to the comments where our friend Dr. Clarity is watching from Murray. He's not shared his protest sign yet, so I'm not sure what he is protesting. I do know that his current favorite issue, I think, is the Democrats need to fight for abortion rights in Kentucky, which, I completely agree. But I'll keep my eyes on the comments if he wants to put one in there. All right, so we want to get into news of the week. News of the week is maybe not the most accurate phrase to use because I think this was published like last month, but JD Vance is in the news this week, and he is the weakest. So I wanted to turn, and I think what inspired me to reach out to Willie was this phenomenal column that he wrote in MSNBC or on MSNBC, I guess, to share his criticism of JD Vance as an authentic hillbilly. So yeah, take it away, Willie.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And the cool thing is, so I've had two types of writing about JD Vance recently. One was this op-ed, which it was actually the week of the Republican National Convention that it was up. So it was actually the top posted story that day on MSNBC. How cool is that? I hope he read it and I hope he was angry about it. And then two, I was doing a lot of JD Vance jokes online, and Meridian actually reached out and asked if they could publish them. So they're like, can you give us some cultural context and sort of talk about the JD Vance jokes? So I work with Sarah Ratliff over at the University of Pikeville because she actually originated these as far as I know, and as far as she knows, but they were probably originating from many places at once. Simultaneously, because it is the zeitgeist of Appalachia to mock a fake Appalachian like JD Vance, which was sort of the article that we ended up writing. But yeah, I think it's important that we remind ourselves, I think specifically as Kentuckians, because people are going to keep trying to shift the narrative about JD Vance. And the truth is, the narrative that we're seeing right now is, well, JD Vance is just talking about one group of people, his family and his experience. And you can't say that his experience wasn't real. And here's the thing, I totally agree with the idea that JD Vance saw some stuff and had some difficult life experiences. At no point have I ever taken that away from JD Vance. What I do argue with is how he talks about Appalachians in this book. And you can't just explain that away as, oh, he's just talking about his family. The clearest time that he says it, because he says over and over and over, this sort of image of all hillbilly culture as somehow inherently listless, lacking in purpose, violent, drug addicted, immoral, lazy, etc. He speaks specifically in the book to those people who don't live in Eastern Kentucky early on, just in case they might think, well, who am I to care about these dumb, lazy hillbillies? He says, if there is any temptation to judge these problems as the narrow concerns of backwoods haulers, a glimpse at my own life reveals that Jackson, Kentucky's plight has gone mainstream. Thanks to the massive migration from the poorer regions of Appalachia to places like Ohio, where I have family, Michigan, where I have family, Indiana, where I have family, Pennsylvania, and Illinois, hillbilly values spread widely along with hillbilly people. So he puts it out there as a warning. And this is smart politically. There's a divide. There are working class people who are trying to get by, and there are those lazy hillbillies who are making it hard on you. So he presents himself as something so that he can crap all over it, and he can use that politically to divide poor white working class people against each other in creating one bad group and letting one group feel good about themselves. Even those people who are from Appalachia who are like, I'm so angry because I'm one of the good people who are working. And that's sort of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But what really makes me mad above everything else, one, if I think about my life versus JD Vance's life, which in many ways are similar in that we came from situations that had drug abuse, and that we came from situations where we always didn't feel really secure. And we moved to the Northeast in some attempt to have a better life. But I think the similarities stop there. One, he lived in a nice house that his papa, who had a union, had because he was in a union and was able to have a pension with that union. His biggest complaints were thinking he was gay. Yeah, I did too. But I actually ended up being gay, JD, so it's a little harder. Three, he talks about how his mama forced him to work retail. Where I come from, like the person working retail is like the really fancy girl who's in the top 10 of your school and is pretty and skinny. Those are the people who got to work retail. So those things that he's talking about being so horrific compared to where actual hillbillies from the hollers of Floyd County and Letcher County come from were actually really nice experiences comparatively. He had a mom with a degree who was working, full-time as a nurse. We can't overlook those experiences when we especially look at them from the lens of him trying to say that he's the same as us. And I think the other thing that's just points to who he is as a person, I can compare to my experience of moving to New England. So I moved to New England, which isn't all entirely rich or anything, but I did certainly see rich people that I hadn't seen the likes of before. I saw money that I hadn't really seen before in the same way. And what I found was the exact same problems existed. There are people who are addicted to drugs who have lots of money and resources, but the difference because of that context is vast. If you are working 9 to 5 at a grocery store and you're addicted to drugs, what do you do? Because if you go into a program, you might lose your job. And if you lose your job, you're going to lose your home. You're living paycheck to paycheck and you're barely making it. Compare that to someone who has the resources to have someone put them into a facility, to have the resources to have someone take care of their kids. This is important because he looked at those people and said, wow, they are so much better than the people that I come from. And I looked at those people and said, you are exactly the same as the people that I come from, except the people that I come from don't have access to the things that you have. And so what I want for the people who are where I'm from is for them to have access to the same sort of things, as opposed to doing what JD Vance does, which is blame those people for the problems that they have. He quite literally says in his book that the issue is some deep resentment and laziness that hillbillies have, and says that there's no problem that people in Appalachia are dealing with that were created by the government or corporations or anyone else. I don't think it was regular individuals who created opioids. I don't think it was regular individuals who decided that they weren't going to do anything about the abuse of opioids. I don't think it was regular individuals who decided not to regulate those opioids and to let doctors get rich and pharmaceutical companies get rich. Those were organizations, and that was the government who did these things. This is the difference between a moral person and JD Vance. JD Vance looks at the situation and just blames the heck out of anybody who didn't come pre-made with the context to deal with things. And he uses his story as some sort of Cinderella story when really he didn't deal with nearly the same number of issues as everyone else. And we can see that immorality in how he talks about Trump. He literally said that Trump would be is the closest thing America has to Hitler. He has talked about how dangerous Trump is. But when you sell out your values, this is the result. You want that money, you want that power. And that's what I see when I see JD Vance. And that's my soapbox.
Woo!
And I reckon, I reckon that the a lot of the coal miners that worked for Script, they didn't do that to themselves. They were, pretty much forced to
Absolutely
for that or starve. So.
Yeah, when my mom lost her job because She literally got sick at a nursing home because the patients were sick. It must have just been her own choice to lose that job. And when my dad had a stroke and went blind, must have just been his choice to have a stroke and go blind. And when the insurance company that he paid every single month told him, well, you didn't ask for insurance for if you go blind. It was if you lose your eye, which you didn't lose because they tricked him. That wasn't his choice. That was just his choice, right? Over and over and over again. This is the narrative that JD Vance sells. And it's a tasty narrative if you're not poor, right? Because it's really racism as well. It's a bunch of white people who believe that white people should somehow be inherently better. And so they look at white people who are living in poverty and say, why are you like that? Aren't you supposed to be white and better than other people? And so they need some excuse, and they're certainly not going to blame themselves. So what's the narrative that works? Mm-hmm. Please do.
No, Willie, you know I love you. You are so precious to me. You really, really are. However, I cannot, in good conscience, agree with you on this is racism. Racism happens to be of color. And I lived that life since the day I've been born, and I'll be 57 in November. And those tactics, those things that JD Vance talked about, the things that have been done to the Anglo-Saxon community that may not have, they might be the have-nots. It doesn't happen to white people, period.
Oh,
The
you're
way that it
absolutely
happens
correct.
for someone like me. And the tactics that are being used are the tactics that have been used upon Black people in America since the ship came over here, the Amstead.
Yeah.
So I just
let me clarify. You're
make that
absolutely
clear. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. When I say it's racism, I'm saying he's using racism to justify, and I mean specifically racism against people of color. He's using racism against Black people because he's positing that white people should somehow be superior. So the racism isn't going against poor white people. He's actually using racism against Black people as a way to paint poor white people, if that makes sense, because he's setting up a dichotomy. He is saying, or embedded in his argument, is the idea that white people are supposed to be superior. So when I say racism, that's what I'm talking about. He is embedding in his argument the idea that white people are supposed to be superior, which in itself is racist. So it's not that the poor white people are receiving the racism. It's that his argument itself is built on a racist ground. The idea that white people are supposed to somehow be superior, if that makes sense.
I understand what you're saying, because white people that don't have a lot, even around Black folks that do have a lot, still are able to be more privileged against any Black person in America any day of the week. I promise you, I'm telling you the truth.
Oh, I completely agree. And I'm glad that you're pointing that out in case there's any confusion. This is not about suggesting that poor Appalachians don't have privilege, because obviously they have white privilege. It's about rich white people in America believing a racist thing about white and Black people, and it infuriating them to see poor white people existing because they believe that poverty should be something associated with people of color. It's actually racism against people of color that is causing arguments like this to work.
So it's like their lens of white supremacy fails when they look at this, so they like have to come up with some kind of other thing.
A good example is the word white trash, right? White trash is racist not because the poor white person is being treated racially. The phrase white trash is racist because it assumes that white people should be better. Right? So that's the issue. The issue is that the phrase white trash works from a construct that presupposes white superiority.
Well, I think this is fascinating. I know we can kind of go down this road for quite a while, but what I'd like to check in on it. So it sounds like you've read the book, Willie.
Sadly.
And now tell me, which chapter is the couch intimacy in?
You know, I will say I read it once, then I read it a second time, and then I thought I saw the couch stuff and thought I would have noticed that, but he is very dry. And I went through and did a search for couch and cushion and all kinds of fun words, and I didn't see them, but it's kind of like Santa Claus. I want to believe it's there. I can prove no evidence, but I have
a friend of mine made the point. It's like the reason it sticks is because A, we're illiterate as a society, but then B, also because like no one's gonna read that whole book, but that you can believe it. The guy strikes you as just weird enough. Like, yeah, I buy that guy is having relations with a couch for sure.
Yes, anything but a human, because he couldn't relate.
Yes, and his racially mixed marriage with his like multiracial kids, like the weirdest. This is the weirdest. Like, really, like, and yet you are all in on this kind of white supremacist Christian nationalist vibe of the current Republican, neo right. Like, it's nuts, just crazy time.
Yeah. The icing on the cake on that kind of thing is after he made the cat lady comment, his wife came back out and tried to clarify that he meant that the women who were intentionally not having kids and just hoarding cats. And I'm like, that doesn't make it any better. Like,
why clean that up? You are high in your own supply if you think that's better.
This is when we point to their weird, we point to like, here's this creepy ass thing you just said. When they point to our weird, they're like, that child has purple hair. Like, our weirds are very different.
No, drag story hour. That's their big problem, right? Like, what? Kids should have people read to them. That's it. That's the only way. And you're gonna get their attention if it's a drag queen reading. That's for sure. All right. So we have another couple stories we wanted to cover. I think maybe who's the next one? Let me pull up this thing. Oh, it's me. Okay. So, all right. So this one is interesting. It comes to us from the Herald Leader. It is the fact that we have gotten, in my sign earlier that I like Lieutenant Governor Coleman way better than Attorney General Coleman, because there was a bit of a dust up. Pulaski County, the school district of Pulaski County, their Board of Education has gone all in opposing Amendment 2, which of course is the constitutional amendment we'll vote on in November in Kentucky, which will allow for the legislature to take tax dollars and give it to private schools, private religious schools, other types of private schools, which is right now explicitly banned in our state constitution. So they want to amend the constitution so they can do the voucher program. These are the same voucher programs that are just bankrupting school budgets all across the country. Wherever they've done this, it's a huge problem to allow these tax dollars to subsidize private schools. And so, rationally, the Pulaski County Board of Education is like, yeah, no, we don't like this. This is a bad idea. We don't want it. We don't want to see it happen. And we're going to tell people we don't want it. Some busybody, a Republican candidate for state representative in Northern Kentucky, TJ Roberts, has asked for an opinion from the Attorney General's office about whether it's legit for them to oppose Amendment 2 publicly, clearly, using the newsletter, using the digital sign at the front of the school to do it. And the Attorney General went ahead and issued his opinion saying that it is inappropriate for the tax dollars to use to advocate for or against the amendment. So using school resources or school time to advance any pro or con arguments around Amendment 2 is not approved under his reading of the law. So that's a bummer. What I like about this, though, is the school district's like, that's garbage. We totally disagree, and we're going to keep pushing as much as we possibly can. And the board said in a statement that the superintendent and the board have a legitimate and legal right to protect public school money that should properly be spent on the public education of children in Pulaski County. So they're not really backing down, which I really do kind of love that. But everyone who's against or folks who are for Amendment 2 are doing everything in their power to try to shut Pulaski County up because, when the school district says, hey, vote against this thing because it imperils our ability to, educate your kids, people are going to pay attention to that. So I'm glad to see Pulaski County kind of sticking to their guns. We'll see what happens, but I think this is one more great kind of news peg to inform people about how bad Amendment 2 is and how important it is we show up on November 5th and vote against this thing. So I don't know, did other folks see that? Any thoughts folks have about it?
Oh man, I saw this story and I just loved it. I didn't anticipate seeing this, that the school district would push something political like this, and I'm so glad that they are. We just started back at school, and on our first day we had, or not, the day before school starts, we had some in-service training, and KEA had a booth there as they do every year, and they had a flyer out against Amendment 2, and so they're I was happy to see that, and so I figured that was probably they would just kind of rely on KEA to kind of do that sort of thing, and the districts not necessarily get involved. But after seeing this, I'm gonna be like, hey, how about Berea Community Schools say something? How about Madison County schools say something? So if it'll be hard to shut us all up.
For sure.
Yeah, the way I've always seen this done is they would invite the teachers or force the teachers to come in at 7:00 in the morning for a meeting. The meeting would last 10 minutes, and then they'd be like, okay, well, your classrooms are locked. Here's a union rep who wants to talk to you. You're not required to sit here. But by this point, we're all already sitting. And that's how we would, once it was actually even the superintendent of the school who said, you're not required to stay here, but I'm going to talk about this issue. But it does open up some cans of worms about what conservative districts might start doing. And that's something to consider. What I will say is, this amendment is so garbage. And I was reading about Arkansas. It's the closest state I could find to us. 95% of students who ended up using those vouchers were students who had already gone to private school in the first place. And so all that this is going to create is a system where private school becomes more expensive, because private school exists for the most part, not entirely, but for the most part, because there are people who don't want their kids mixing with public school kids. That's not about to change. It's just going to make it much cheaper for their kids to go to those private schools. And again, not all private schools. I'm sure there's some nice ones.
For sure. Kimberly, any thoughts about that? You are muted because
it wouldn't be a good show unless I was muted. Okay, you all know. Willie, you remember, don't you?
Yes.
It's my thing. It's my jam. I'm sorry. But anyway, I'm one of the few too. Yes. That sent my daughter to Sacred Heart Academy here in Louisville, which is a world-renowned parochial school. And I sent her there. I allowed her to go through public school all those years, the Montessori program at Coleridge Taylor Elementary, the Advanced Math and Science Technology program at Mazik. And then after that, I was like, I don't want her to get all hemmed up with these boys and stuff and, start slipping in school. And to be honest with you, that was the real reason why I sent my daughter her high school years to Sacred Heart. And I'm sure a lot of other parents feel that way too.
Yeah, but you're in Louisville. I'm in Lexington. It's like there's so few rural counties that actually even have public schools. Private schools to send their kids to, right? So this really is just a way of, defunding schools in these urban areas, most likely. But depending on how the legislature jimmies the math to try to make it work, and who knows where that money's going to come from authentically, right? So I just think it's obviously a horrible idea. We should fight it, but again, kudos to Pulaski County for stepping up and staying standing, even when, the heavy hand of the law is telling them to pipe down. So it'll be interesting to watch this play out for sure. But I know that, Kimberly, you've got a story that kind of gets to some of our national political leaders that I definitely think we wanted to cover right now. And so what do you got for us?
Yes, I actually will be talking about Representative James Comer. And he is the chairperson of the House Oversight Committee and Accountability Committee. And he says his panel that also was trying to get articles of impeachment for President Biden, as well as delve more into what Hunter Biden did. That's what they spend tax dollars on. The not there. But anyway, he says that his panel plans to hold Vice President Kamala Harris, my soror, accountable by investigating her role in the influx of migrants across the southwest border and the associated cost to taxpayers. Well, let me just say this. In an interview on Sunday night with Fox News, Trey Gowdy, you all remember Rebel Trey Gowdy, and also Comer, they were accusing Harris over and over again of sending an open invitation to migrants to enter the United States. And also, the criticism of Vice President Harris on Sunday night repeated a misleading line of attack by Republicans that Biden appointed her border czar, placing her in charge of border security. Coomer said that the panel also will look into the financial cost of migration, including Medicaid and public schools. So, really, about this whole situation, number one, it has been fact checked on numerous of occasions that Kamala Harris was not ever appointed a border czar. There is no such thing. Also, Kamala was asked upon by the White House to delve in, look and wonder and get the facts on why people from Guatemala, um, Mexico, why is it that they are trying to run to America? What is exactly happening where they are living so that we can maybe help in that way, which may cost less money? Also, Gowdy himself, a former House Oversight Committee chairman, opened the interview on Sunday night with a video clip he claimed proved Biden put Harris in charge of the border. In the clip, Biden says he asked Harris to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help. All of Biden's subsequent comments, which were not shown on the clip on Fox News. It made clear he had only assigned Harris with addressing the underlying causes of migration through diplomacy. So that's what the whole thing is about. Once again, a woman, especially, let's just look back at Hillary Clinton. For whatever reason, this country will just tell the most bogus lies. And they become more vicious when it's a woman. So, all that I can really actually say about this particular situation is that they're going to use everything, they're going to lie everything, they're going to get other people and probably pay them to corroborate anything to make sure, as they think, that Vice President Kamala Harris will not become our president. Back to you, Aaron.
Yeah. That whole Jamie Comer, what a joke. You know, again, we call him out at the top of the show, and we'll call him out each and every show until we get rid of him. If you haven't checked out Erin Marshall, we had Erin Marshall on our show, I don't know, a couple months ago, maybe. She is the young woman who is running against Jamie Comer, and I guarantee you she would not be this nationwide embarrassment or statewide, Commonwealth-wide embarrassment that Jamie Comer represents, right? Like, that guy is just like, whatever, oh, Biden's in charge, I better investigate Biden because, they investigated Trump. So now it's like tit for tat, right? Like, well, they investigated Trump because he was like guilty of a bunch of stuff. You're investigating Biden because he's the president. Like, oh, now you're investigating Kamala Harris because she's, the nominee. Like, what a joke. And I don't know. Everyone's seen the clip. She went to Central America and said, "Don't come." Like, we don't know. We cannot deal with this. Like, we have a legal process. And you need to come through the legal process. Do not come. So yeah, I don't know what this investigation is going to turn up. My hunch, it's going to turn up just as much as his previous investigations. But yeah, that's how our tax dollars are works, folks. Thanks to Jamie Comer. I don't know anyone else who's fired up about this. Chris, you're muted.
And I'm just trying to emulate Kimberly, but they have some of those tax dollars because of immigrant. I mean, there's undocumented immigrants pay $79 billion in taxes in 2022 at a higher rate than the top 1%, and in the majority of the states that paid $26 billion to a lot of the social programs. And those numbers come from Robert Reich. And just, all the fear mongering and all this about undocumented workers, the vast majority come here to be to work hard, support their families, and be good citizens and not get in trouble. And the fact that they try to make up a new word like migrant crime is just insanity.
Yeah, no, I think the stats on that are they commit crimes at a lower rate than the background population, right? So despite taking every horrific story that they can find and blowing it up to be the thing that happens, with all immigrants, right? Like, just, it's gross. The Trump on the stump talking about Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter. I think it's because he's an idiot and thinks that they're claiming asylum means that they were kicked out of insane asylums in their home countries. I think that's why he keeps talking about it, which is like, really, like, Biden was mentally incompetent or incapable of being president. That guy is such a moron and an idiot. And anyway, so yeah, it's gross that they do that to the immigrant population. These folks who are just trying to get ahead. Yeah, they're not all perfect, just like citizens, but I will say this, like, all these conservative Republicans who are like all fired up about it, like, let's see, all right, round them all up, send them all home, the 11 million or whatever the heck it is, the ridiculous numbers of them, see what happens to our economy. It will completely fall apart, like you mentioned, Chris. These are folks who are paying actually, a lot of taxes and not getting benefits, and it's not like we need more immigration in this country. There are right now a lot of folks who cannot hire the workforce they need. And if we can get folks out of the shadows and get them like into, all the different workforce training programs or whatever, fits their interest or the availability in the areas they're in, like, it's going to be better for our economy. But if you take them away, it would destroy the economy. Let's talk about the horse farms. How many, they would shut down immediately. I don't know what a horse farm that shuts down looks like. I think it still looks like a horse farm, but it's like they're not going to be nearly as productive without that workforce, for sure. So
I do want to say this though, just to piggyback on everybody. The one thing that I do hear from the constituency, not just here in Kentucky or Louisville, but all over our country, that single mother that's really trying to take care of her family, she makes, just $250 over the threshold to get some food stamps or something to help supplement. And a lot of people are really speaking out. A lot of Democrats also speaking out about why do we still have people laid out underneath viaducts with nowhere to go. And when people come to this country, we give them the full red carpet treatment, so to speak, somewhere to stay. They're able to get food stamps. They can get bank accounts without a social security number. And that is very, very true. So I think also in our governments, we need to address those issues as well, because people are really starting. I was like, what? I would never think she would speak up about this. And people are just speaking up about what about us? What about us that was born in America?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we should be giving preferential treatment to folks who are here illegally. I would like to dig in on some of those examples that are being shared, and I do think it's always easier to blame another like let's not blame each other for the folks who are the lower half of our society, when it's the folks that were the 1% that are really setting us against one another, right?
That's what we're saying. That's what they are saying. That's what I agree with them. That's what I'm saying. It's not against anyone that's come here. All of us, our ancestors had to come here some kind of way. However, it is true. A lady showed a video of this apartment building in New York, a beautiful, brand new apartment building, and there were different people waiting for a few years to be able to lease one of the apartments. But she showed that now nobody can get into those apartments because they have given all of those apartments and the government is paying for it to our, unfortunate brothers and sisters that have to come here because of whatever was happening in their own country. But do you see what I'm saying, though? We need to address both of them equally and fairly. And I think that way it can make a lot of people feel more included.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I don't know. Other thoughts on, our wonderful immigration system, or any other thoughts on the issue at hand? All right, so I know we have one final story that we wanted to cover. Chris always likes to bring the positivity. He's not cynical like the rest of us. So I thought I think this is a great story to hear from Chris.
Yeah. So a lot of food in the U.S., especially that we feed our kids in schools, is like mass produced, highly processed foods, as we all eat, especially like fast foods and things. And imagine a world where you could have fresh local food in your schools. And seeing this story brought me so much joy, especially with my wife being a farmer. And this is an issue that I have brought up to the school I work at, is how can we get fresh foods that are local in our schools? And don't you know it, there's a bipartisan bill. There's actually a Republican that is excited to work on this and is working on this with some Democrats, and they're trying to see how they can work with Kentucky agriculture to get food grown here in Kentucky into our schools for kids to eat. And this is definitely a subject that I find very worthwhile and very exciting. I certainly hope that this continues to get traction. So this new program would allow Kentucky school districts that participate in the community eligibility provision, a federal program reimbursing districts for the cost of providing free school breakfast and lunch in low-income areas, to get more financial support from the Kentucky Department of Agriculture when funding is available. About 90% of all public school districts and private schools in Kentucky participate in CEP, according to state data. So, we could get stuff, that's Kentucky grown, and, that's they prioritize Kentucky proud products. And, this would help out our farmers. This would help out nutrition wise, because you know that when you as soon as you pick a piece of produce, it starts to lose some nutritional value. And if that's coming from California, where they have to pick it early and then ripe as it gets here, it's not going to have as much nutrition as if they just picked it in Bowling Green and took it to Lexington. and it had to travel less time and probably got to ripen on the wherever it was being grown faster. It should have more nutrition, assuming that they treat the soil well, and should be less processed than some of the stuff that I have seen schools put in front of kids. So this is super exciting. So better nutrition means healthier students. There is no negative to this. And I'm super excited. I'm curious what you all think.
Sounds awesome. Yeah. And it's the free meal program that would be like given more resources and kind of more ability to partner with the Kentucky Department of Ag to do that, Kentucky proud agriculture. That means like more kids are going to want the free lunches and the free breakfasts, which, that's awesome. My only concern is that, as one thing that Governor Walz has been tagged with in Minnesota is providing more free lunches for kids. So, we might lose that bipartisan support in Frankfort, with the kind of new political awareness around these types of programs. But yeah, I think that's awesome. I know, Willie, you were a teacher. What are your thoughts about it?
I'm hearing new political awareness around these programs equals once Republicans decide that kids eating food is a political thing that they're against. I'm all for it, and I believe obviously I'm for it, but I believe very much in people organizing locally to make these sorts of changes happen. It was in Montgomery County, it was actually some students who were responding to lunch shaming when they would take food away from kids who had already put it on their tray and then replace it with a sandwich because they didn't have enough money. So some students started giving away lunches for free as a sort of mini protest. And within a month, the entire district declared that all students were free and reduced. So it's an example of a way that you can start with local interest in something and really change things in a big way.
Kimberly, what you got?
I think it's a wonderful and great idea. I think that is true. You're going to have more and more children that are going to want these lunches, and they should all be able to partake in it. I do know that if you have to pay for lunch in school and breakfast, it is extremely expensive. I can't remember exactly how much it is, but it is extremely expensive. I like the part about, Kentucky grown. I really, really love that part. That puts some money in our farmers' pockets. So it's a win-win all the way around.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, the kids just do better when they're not hungry, right? So they're going to learn, and they're going to pay better attention. They're probably not going to act out in class as much. They're not going to like pass out from lack of nutrition or whatever. No, I shouldn't make light of it, but it is definitely like making these lunches not something that have stigma attached to them, but right, like the thing that everyone wants because they're just better, as opposed to the like, oh, this is the poor kid lunch that is free. So like, of course, kids don't want to take that. They don't want to, like kids are so sensitive to, what their peers are seeing or doing or whatever, right? Like we all can remember that, I hope, unless you've, blocked it all out because of the trauma, right? It's like a rough time. So anything that makes the poor kids stand out as poor, like, oh fuck, that's horrible for these kids, right? So this has got to be something that helps that dynamic. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that as soon as everyone gets a whiff of Governor Walz supporting free lunches for kids in Minnesota, they'll lose their bipartisan support, and the GOP in Frankfort will absolutely be dead set against it, because that's the way they roll. Like, they are the worst. I mean, I'm sorry, folks, but like I am about done with these folks back there. They don't seem to want to do the right thing for our Commonwealth very damned often, and it's. So I hate to embrace the cynicism, but 80 something days we can take a crack at it, make things a little bit better. So I think that's what I wanted to roll into, is maybe our call to action. So just say, like, this has been a great conversation. So glad to have Willie back for a minute. Any plug, any any events you're doing? I know you do a lot of public speaking, a lot of public engagement stuff you're doing. Anything you want to plug for the audience coming up?
In October, we hope to be doing a fundraiser for the Kentucky Youth Law Project, which helps LGBTQ youth under the age of 25 with any legal issues that they may have. That'll be tied with Salvation South, which is a fantastic new literary group. So the idea is I will probably be there, Robert Geip, Silas House, Nima Vashia, and we'll be raising some money for some kids who need it. So watch my Facebook. I'll be posting.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely share that on the show as well and push it out to our followers for sure. All right. Well, let's see. What is the call to action? I think I wrote something up on this. So yeah, the election is coming quick, folks. We are fighting against Amendment 2 and 4 more folks in Frankfort to stand against Kentucky's outrageous abortion restrictions and to fight for reproductive justice in the General Assembly. Folks specifically like Adam Moore. We want to keep Sherilyn Stevenson. So we are planning an Election Day campaign kickoff to bring in the Protect Our Schools folks, to bring in candidates. Obviously, we want to get rid of Andy Barr in this area, and in the bluegrass area, Randy Cravens is a candidate that we're backing and supporting. So you want to hear from these folks. We're putting together an event so you can take action and get involved and help canvass and help get the word out about what's on the ballot on November 5th. And that the easiest way to make sure you hear about our effort, right, in 83 days from now, and you want to be a part of it, go to our homepage, Progress Kentucky, and go ahead and sign up right there on the homepage. It's progressky.org. We've got a sign up sheet right there to add your name to our campaign, and we'll let you know when this event is scheduled. We're looking at Labor Day weekend, but trying to figure out the best possible time to do it so that everyone can make it out. But we would love to have you join us. And because it's going to take a lot of work to make a difference, right? We all know this is a deeply red state. I think it's one of the things that, didn't really help Andy in his Veep stakes position, right? They're like, no one's like, there's no value in us adding a guy from Kentucky electorally to our efforts. But I do think there's a lot to be said about what's on the ballot here, even, ignoring the fact that, unless a miracle happens, Trump is gonna win Kentucky. Let's just accustom ourselves to that, fairly unfortunate reality. But there's a lot of Trump Bashir voters out there. There's a lot of people who can do more sensible things down the ballot, and I think Amendment 2 helps us have that conversation. I think there are folks across the political spectrum that think it's a horrible idea to take public dollars and give them to private schools, and then you can think about, well, hey, who are the folks that supported putting Amendment 2 on the ballot? Oh, right. It's the Republicans who kept trying to pass voucher programs, who kept getting shut down by the state Supreme Court, right? That's why they put this on the ballot. Right? So if you think it's a bad idea, maybe you should think, that the party that brought you this amendment aren't really coming for your best interest or supporting your best interest either. We all know abortion is an issue that won in Kentucky. Shockingly, we still don't have access to abortion in Kentucky. Why is that? That's because the GOP supermajority in the legislature. Let's get rid of a bunch of those folks. Let's get some folks who will actually allow for some reproductive justice. So you put it all together. I hope we can make some gains in Kentucky, in Frankfort. We can push back on Amendment 2, no matter what happens at the top of the ticket. But we need folks to really pitch in to make that happen for sure. So I hope everyone wants to take part, get involved, and not sit on the sidelines between now and November 5th, because democracy, folks, it is not a spectator sport. You got to get on the field. It's not like watching the Olympics. Maybe it's like watching the Olympics. You're like, I bet I can pommel horse. Oh, I bet I can do that synchronized swimming. Yeah, well, come on out and show us. Show us what you got. And I promise you, canvassing's a lot easier than pommel horse. I guarantee you. All right. Kimberly, any final thoughts from this rogues gallery that we have assembled tonight?
It's been a great show tonight. And it has really warmed my heart that my friend, my hero, Colonel, the Honorable Colonel Willie Carver, was on tonight. Congratulations on being a colonel. Um, and I also want to say that, does anybody have any aura gel? You want to see how I'm swollen right here?
Burble to bring it down.
Oh, really? Okay, I might have a little bit Woodford over there. I might have to. Okay, thank
Hold
you
it
so
against your
much.
hold it against your
Mm.
cheek before you swallow.
Well,
And I'm glad
anyway,
Willie can see you.
I love Willie. I love you too, Chris. Don't think I don't. Willie, he's crazy. So, anyway, Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State. Yes, it is. And we are organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, the Commonwealth Alliance for Voter Engagement, otherwise known as CAVE, and are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Next week's show will feature another great guest. Is this correct that the one and only Adam Edlin is coming next week? Wow. Okay, we got it going on over here on Kernels of Truth. So, anyway, he's the clean energy developer with Edlin Renewables to celebrate the second anniversary for the Biden administration's historic investment in clean energy, the Inflammation Reduction Act, and what it's meant for energy development throughout the Commonwealth. Production of tonight was by our very own Mr. Parker, who's a little new to the game, and he did a great job tonight. Kudos to him. And Nate Orshan, our friend Nate Dogg, wrote and performed our theme song. You can find more information about his songs on natosongs.com. That's NATO songs.com. Now, if you miss our weekly live stream, you can hear us, okay? You can get us, you can see us on Facebook, YouTube, any audio podcast, basically. And our show notes are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and more or less everywhere that you get your podcast. If you do listen to the podcast, please, 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 I'm begging, please leave us a 5-star review whenever you are listening. Logo and some graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media. See more of their work on couchfiremedia.com. It's been a great night, great show. See you all next week. Same channel, same time.